opportunity to go inward and figure out what's happening and how to resolve that. And I think one of the best things moms can do for their children is when you mess up, and we've all messed up, and that is okay, that we humble ourselves and we apologize. Like, you know what I mean? Like, if you yelled at your kid or got snappy, like, get down on their level, like, literally sit down on the floor, eye level, and genuinely apologize for, the way you spoke or whatever that happened.
Welcome to Brown Girls Need Healing Too, the podcast where we dive deep into the journey of healing, transformation, and radical self love. I'm Kiana, and I'm here to help you break free from trauma, reconnect with your inner peace, and step boldly into the life you deserve. This is your space to feel seen, heard, and supported as we explore the tools, stories, and practices that will help you reclaim your power and rewrite your story. Because healing isn't just for some of us, it's for all of us. And brown girls need healing too. So today is the very first episode where I bring in a guest speaker. She is quite amazing. I think she has such a beautiful, pure heart and soul. And today she is coming on to share her message about healing childhood traumas, something that we all could benefit from in order to improve our abilities to be the best moms that we can be. So, without further ado, I'm going to add her on. So, how are you?
I'm so good. It is so nice to connect with you.
I know, and I was just thinking today, like, how interesting it is that the way that the universe works, because we've been Facebook friends for like a couple of years now, and it's I don't even know how we ended up as Facebook friends, but here we are, and obviously it was for a good reason.
Yes, I love the way I was thinking about that too. You know, the internet can have, its ups and downs, but I've been able to meet so many amazing people like through the internet.
Yes.
And then I'm just like, and they're like your people, like people that get you and understand and like want to talk to you about all the weird things that you love. And sometimes that's hard to find right outside your door. So,
Yeah, it's like almost like a dating app because you can filter through people that you just,
yeah.
normally have nothing in common with or minimal things in common with, and it leads you right to the people that you need to have in your life. So I love the internet as well. It's definitely helped me create friendships that I otherwise wouldn't have.
Awesome. Yeah. So I'm Andrea Pintozzi. I've coined myself the life coach for moms. My journey has really evolved since becoming a mother. So I find it so ironic that it's, taken these twists and turns. Originally, I started off with health and wellness because I just have a passion for that. But there's something, of course, we want to feel good in our bodies, right? Like be healthy and fit and in shape. But I feel like there's something so much deeper that we yearn for as human beings on this planet. Like that's like the superficial level. Not that that's wrong or that that's bad, but there's like onions to peel back, like layers to our evolution of who we truly want to show up, how we truly want to show up in the world, and how we want to share our gifts and how we want to feel fulfilled and contentment and all of those things. And so from the life coach or from the health coaching, it just kind of spawned into life coaching. I went on the most epic spiritual journey of my life during COVID. Ironically, during 2020, I was living in South Florida and I got to embark on quantum hypnosis therapy, which if you had asked me a couple years later to do that, I would have said, heck no, because I grew up in a very traditional Christian home that was very close minded to other types of healings. And I'm sure we can get into that later. And it just rocked my entire world. I dove into yoga teacher training. I fell in love with inner child healing, manifestation. Like it's like all of a sudden I had this return to home of this knowing of how to be a better mom and how I want to show up in the world and help other moms. And so my life coaching really has a strong emphasis on inner child healing. I truly feel if you heal your inner child, you can heal every area of your life. You release trapped emotions, you start to reprogram limiting beliefs. And the best part is you reconnect back to your authentic self. Like you get to just be you with zero F's given about what other people think. And within that, my clients, the mothers that I have the privilege of working with, they get to find balance. They get to find purpose again. They get to have deep joy and whatever it is that they're doing, whether they, work a 9 to 5, have a career, stay at home mom, whatever they're doing, they get to have that again. And I don't know, I feel really honored to be in this space to share it because I've been through it. I think that's why my work works so well is because like I've been there, I've been in the trenches. I tried to consciously parent and be a better mom. I was trying to break generational cycles, but I didn't really knew what that meant until I embarked on inner child healing. And so that's why I have such a strong passion for it. And I have tons of resources on my Instagram that people can go to, books. You can go to my website, andreapintozzi.com. And I do have a mini course, an inner child mini course. So if people are like wanting to get their toes wet and just do like a self-paced course, it's only 37 bucks. I highly recommend it. There's meditations in there, there's workbooks. You get a lot from it. And it's only 37. I should charge more, but I don't.
I love that. Now I'm gonna I'm gonna have to do it, and you should definitely charge more. But let me get it first before you raise the price, okay?
Okay.
But I absolutely love what you said about, inner child healing and how it really is the framework in how we view life and how we experience life. And I tell people all the time, like, we're just little kids in adult bodies, and we're still trying to figure out how to navigate the world based on our experiences, our filters, our traumas. So it definitely, it just all starts in inner child healing. And for me personally, I suffered from a lot of childhood trauma. And, I saw you and your work and what you're doing for moms and just in women with women in general, because I know you've transitioned from, I think we met with doTERRA and then you've done other things, but it's all been in the same realm of just wanting to help women. And I love that about you. And I love your mission and I love what you're doing. And I love your relationship with your daughter. And so that's why I was like, I have to, you're the best person that I could ever have on this platform to talk about inner child healing.
Oh, trying to make a sister cry over here.
No crying, no crying. Um, so this podcast is called Brown Girls Need Healing Too. But as you know, it's not just about brown girls, it's about any girl who has experienced any type of conflict or trauma. And my main goal is just to help women heal to be better versions of themselves. I want, at the end of this episode, every single person that's listening, I really want them to be able to identify themselves in our stories, in our struggles, and to see, like, as a community, there is a way out. So what does being a mother mean to you, and how has that changed your view of motherhood through your healing journey?
Oh my goodness. Well, I mean, I think most women will agree with this. Having the gift of being a mother is just one of the most beautiful blessings on this planet. And I think there is so much more to unpack there when you really look at it. I truly feel like when we have children, it's God gifting us an opportunity to, you know, return back to our authentic selves. That our kids teach us, laugh more, have more fun, be more childlike, don't take life so serious. But they also are mirroring our unhealed trauma, our triggers, our wounds that some of us may be conscious of, but there's some wounds too that they highlight. We're like, dang, I did not know I needed to work on that area. And if we can truly humble ourselves so much and really look at these little tiny humans as our teachers, we will find true enlightenment in the healing process. Like they are, I truly feel God does that on purpose, or universe, insert, whatever you believe in. I think there's a purpose to that, right? And we I tell my ladies, like, when we start to feel like a disconnect in how we're showing up, like, we're easily triggered by our kid, or maybe you're one of those mothers like me that really wanted to conscious parent, but found yourself in these moments where you were very reactive. You were yelling or spanking or saying things that you said you would never say. That, I always joke around and say, like, my mom used to always tell me, because I told you so. And I
Oh my
hated that. Like,
gosh.
I
Oh my.
hated that. I was like, I will not say that. Like, I will not do that. And I did it for the longest. And I caught myself the other day saying it. And I was like, oh, shoot, Andrea. Okay, there's some stuff we gotta unpack here. Like, the healing process, it never ends. But I also want to preface too, like, in the middle of your healing journey, don't forget to, like, have fun and enjoy life too. Like, you don't want to be too hard on yourself and always like, some moms are like, gosh, I can really mess up my kid. And I'm like, no, 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 no. Like, your child chose you and you chose them. And at any moment in time when you have the awareness of something's not working, that is your opportunity to go inward and figure out what's happening and how to resolve that. And I think one of the best things moms can do for their children is, when you mess up, and we've all messed up, and that is okay, that we humble ourselves and we apologize. Like, you know what I mean? Like, if you yelled at your kid or got snappy, like, get down on their level, like, literally sit down on the floor, eye level, and genuinely apologize for, the way you spoke or whatever that happened. And then explain to them too, like, why did that happen? Maybe it was, you haven't been taking any time for yourself and you're running on fumes, and you're just like, like, explain that to them. Like, kids are so smart. And then what's going to happen is, you're going to give them this beautiful gift that they're going to realize they don't need to be perfect. They're going to realize, oh, mom stopped running herself on fumes, took time to prioritize her self-care. Okay, that's important. Okay, I'm going to put that in the back of my brain as how I'm going to later view the world and view my relationship with self-care. And it's okay to say sorry. In fact, when we say sorry and we have true forgiveness, like, that is the ultimate thing that sets us free in our healing process, right? And so there's so many things that happen that we get to do with inner child healing that, like, it sounds like it would be like this hard, strenuous process where you got to sit down and have a lot of alone time with yourself. But just that little interaction that you just have with your kid, like, that was you reparenting your inner child and modeling what self love looks like for your child. Thus, you're breaking a generational cycle right there. And that's the opportunity that we have in motherhood. That's the real beautiful opportunity that we have, to give them a childhood that maybe we yearned for and desired. We get the opportunity to do that. And I think there's nothing more beautiful than that.
I love that so much. I do. So I want to know, and I'm dubbing myself as like the official trauma bonder, because I just realized that I am so good at trauma bonding with people. It's what I love to do. Like, I don't want to talk about celebrities. I don't want to talk about cars, hairs, and nails, whatever. I want to talk about what your life was like when you were alone and you were suffering as a kid and how you got through it. But I'm saying all that to say, if you feel comfortable sharing, can you tell us, what was your child experience like? And were there any experiences that shaped your perception of yourself and your role as a mother now today?
Oh my goodness. 100%. So, I'm going to start with this to just give a little, like, background. So, from 0 to 7, we are all programmed with this blueprint of how we're going to later view the world, because we're in a theta brainwave state. So, our brain, as a small child, we're just taking all this information in as, oh, okay, this is how mom's supposed to talk to dad. Oh, this is how mom's supposed to take care of her body. Oh, this is what mom thinks about me. So this is now my inner voice. This is what I think about me. Oh, this is how I'm going to view finances, relationships, religion, politics, other races, like money, like all of the things, right? It all gets programmed in us at a very young age. And that's important to know, because we can fast forward to adult life. If we start noticing, like, that we have these self-sabotaging mechanisms, or, the way we're showing up in motherhood, or, we can't get past a certain financial, goal that we have within our businesses, all of that's tied to childhood. And we can start to reprogram new belief systems where we're at today when we start to realize, oh, that shit that happened to me in childhood, those were just projections. Those aren't really my story. That's not really my story. That's not really who I am. And something in that, trigger tracking back to certain points in time, it's almost like your brain starts to understand more how the trauma gets lodged and stuck in us. And when we have a better belief system and understanding of how that trauma affects us as adults, we can start to unpack it and heal from it. And I will say, when somebody asks me, like I remember someone posted something on Facebook and asked, if you could have a different mother or father, would you? And I was like, wow, that's a really like intense question. And especially if you had somebody that had really big trauma, they might say absolutely. But we chose our parents. And although what happened to us is not our fault, it is absolutely our fault to heal from it and for us to break that cycle for our children. And so when I look back at every single thing that happened to me as a young child, I grew up in a divorced home. I grew up in an alcoholic home, lots of yelling. My mom and dad both worked. So like, I don't remember a single moment where my mom ever played with me. She was one of those parents that was like, I'm here to be your mom, not your friend. I can take you out of this world as fast as I brought you in it. So like I had no real relationship with my mother. She was the authority figure over me. And when I look at my life today or just, 5, 10 years ago, I could see how that affected me. I mean, all the way through, my adolescence into my 20s and 30s, I could see how that affected my relationships. I had 10 years, I call it the dark night of the soul, where I was lost. I was a lost soul. Like I'm talking alcohol, drugs, all of the things. And that stems obviously from my upbringing, the alcohol, the abuse, not seeing my mother maybe treated the best way she should. So I allowed myself to be in those types of relationships. I'd have no bitter feelings about any of that because when I embarked on inner child healing, I realized my mother and father, all of our mothers and fathers, love us with all the capacity that they know and that the way that they were loved. And then they're just operating on autopilot. So whatever they saw or however they were treated, they just do that again. It's just a generational cycle. And it doesn't stop until somebody becomes consciously aware of, oh, this is not right. This is not okay. Or this is not how I want to show up. But in all of that, the part that is the most healing is when you find radical forgiveness for yourself and the situation, the experience, and the person. That doesn't mean that person just gets to come back into your life if it was something that was, unacceptable. That's where we also set those healthy boundaries. Unhealthy boundaries is a very common um, symptom that we have from childhood trauma. We just let people walk all over us, treat us however. So I'm not saying and just because we forgive somebody, we let them in, right? Forgiveness is your secret sauce to your happiness. You literally say, you don't have power over me anymore. You don't have power over how I get to live my life or who I get to choose to be with or how I choose to parent or what kind of career passion I'm going to choose because I think this is what's best for me. Insert whatever, projection you had projected onto you. When you start to heal that, that shifts and changes everything for your entire life. And I'm very grateful. I know this may sound strange to say, but I'm grateful for those experiences that I had in childhood. And I am grateful for the all the pardon my French, but really fucked upness that I had for 10 years. It was a dark night of my soul, but it was also a part of my shadow side that I got to let out and live. And now I can say, like, I know how to channel all of that and live this life that feels so good to me. I don't stuff down parts that I'm ashamed of. You know what I mean? If you're somebody that's, ashamed of anything that you've done, that's always going to stunt you from your growth and your full expansion of love. Like you can't harbor hate, bitterness, anger, resentment, ashamed. You can't harbor those feelings and still sync up to the, frequency of unconditional love. Like it just doesn't happen. You have to slowly start to heal that. And that does take time. That was not an overnight thing for me. But because I embarked on that journey and found radical forgiveness for my parents and the way that they raised me, I now have this empathy level that I never had before for them. And I'm able to not be triggered by them. And I know when to walk away. I know when my time is the time spent together, it's time for me to go. I I'm just more patient and calm. And my relationship with the both of them is definitely the strongest that it's ever been because of that. That was a very long-winded response.
No, it was very beautiful. And your part about forgiveness, I think like a lot of people struggle with it because people tell you to forgive, but they never tell you how. And, for me, I've been in therapy. I've been on this journey since I had my spiritual awakening in, I think it was 2022. And my childhood traumas with my mom it was my identity. Like for a long time, still today, I am still trying to be someone, not be the Kiana that was shut away for most of her childhood and really know who I am at the core of my heart and my soul and all of my desires. And forgiveness is huge. One thing that I'm learning is that, they say forgiveness isn't for the other person, it's for yourself. And it's so true. But for people who have self-sabotaging tendencies like me, it is a constant battle of like, I need to forgive my mom and forgive myself, but then it's like, on the other side of forgiveness is healing. And then it's like, I don't even feel like I deserve that half the time. Like, I don't feel like I deserve good things. So I have to be very conscious and aware of those thoughts and those feelings and that story that I keep telling myself. But I do love that you have been able to get on the other side of forgiving your caregivers, and now you have a new profound sense of empathy. I think that's one of the most amazing things a person can do.
Yeah, it is hard to forgive the other person, but like you said, it's not so much even about them. It's just like about you. And then what ends up happening is like when I look at my upbringing, like my dad was very hard on me. I played sports. I remember, I'll never forget, it's third grade, he picked me up from my babysitter's house and I was shooting hoops in the driveway with her. And he played basketball, coached high school, played college, all the things. And he's like, "Did you like that?" And I was like, "Yeah, I think so. I think I might be good at it." And from third grade until I was 22 years old, he pushed me so hard with basketball to the point like I was the best. But after every single game, after we would win and I would score all the points, have triple doubles, he would yell at me in the car in front of the whole family, screaming, yelling, tearing me down to where I'm crying about telling me what I should have and could have done better my entire childhood. And I was literally the best, always the starter, varsity all, through high school. And like most people would be like, "Oh my God, that guy's awful. Like, don't you just hate him?" But when I look back at it, his dad did that to him. And so
Mhm.
now I look at it like how sad as
Mhm.
a small child that he had to go through that. That makes me feel sorry. And I look at it like, I'm sorry that you had to do that and you had to feel that. Like, I know what that feels like. You did that to me. But I've taken that blame off of him. You know what I mean? Because if I continue to blame him for it, then I'm not taking responsibility for my healing journey. And that's where it starts, and it's really really hard and it took me a long time, but now I just look at it like, gosh, your dad did that to you and I'm so sorry that that happened.
Yeah, I played basketball too, by the way, but
I
not,
love it.
I was not good at it. I remember one time I went the opposite direction. I didn't even know where our team's hoop was. I went to the other team's hoop. So that wasn't my strength, but oh, that's so deep. Was there a specific moment in your life where you can remember like when you became a mom and you were like something needs to change, or do you feel like the change happened before you had Charlie?
So it was definitely two parts. um I knew when I had her I definitely wanted to parent differently. I didn't want her to be raised in a home where it was, chaotic with the yelling and the fighting. That was like not going to happen. I knew that, and it doesn't. And I knew I was going to parent her in a way that my mom, I didn't have that close relationship with my mom. Like, she was a great mom. She worked all the time. She provided for us. She did what she had to do. She was very ambitious, chased down like her goals and dreams. But in the midst of that, sacrificed, being a present mother. And so I knew I was wanted to be a present mother, and I wanted to make sure my daughter knew, that door is always open for communication. I never tell her she's not my friend. Like, that was like a core memory for me, for my mom saying that. And so I embarked, a little bit on conscious parenting, but when my daughter turned 3, girl, she was testing me. I was like, oh, Jesus, take the wheel. And I just started, I would just be reactive. And ironically enough, this was during COVID. And this is when I started doing yoga teacher training. And thank God I did, because this is what I started learning about inner child healing. And I realized what was happening was we can consciously say, hey, I want to conscious parent, I want to, parent differently, which is just basically it's being consciously aware of how we are responding versus reacting. You know what I mean? It's a form of gentle parenting, looking at your child as an equal. You're not an authority figure over them. You're not, we don't spank them. And, we want to hit our friends, right? We want to hit our spouse. We want to, yell at them. And sometimes that happens, and that's okay. But I just knew, like, okay, I don't want to yell at her. I don't want to spank her. And there was just moments where I would get triggered and I would like pop her on the butt, or um, she just would want to play for hours, rightfully so. She's 3. And I would have such a hard time just sitting there playing for so long. I would just be looking around the room like, what can I do? Or I'm like, oh, I need to go put the dishes away, or I need to go fold laundry. And like, I couldn't just be with her. And I was like, what the freak is going on? What is this? And I realized what happens is our inner child is part of our psyche for the rest of our life. And when you have kids, when your kids react a certain way and you're triggered by them, it's your inner child inside of you literally piping up saying, like, don't let her talk to you that way. Your mom didn't let you talk to you that way. She needs to get popped in the mouth like you did. Or I'm just using this as an example. Or for me, my inner child was going, you can't sit down and play with her. You got work to do. That's what your mom did. Your mom never played with you. And so, like, it was just like, I was like, oh, I was having this aha moment. This was something new for me that I never got to experience. And that's why it was so hard for me to just be present with her and play with her. And you can literally, I call it Sherlock's homing, but you can literally Sherlock Holmes every single trigger of why you're behaving the way you're behaving, literally to your childhood. And I sat with that and I told my inner child, I just put my hand on my heart and I'm like, you know what? Your mom worked because she was trying to provide for you. And that was amazing because you were very blessed and had all the things. And you had a sister that played with you. Like, all of my memories from childhood is me playing with my sister and my cousins and visiting my grandma. That's all I remember. I don't remember my mom reading me a book. I don't remember her playing with me ever. And that's okay. I don't harbor any bad feelings for that. But that's why it was so hard for me to do that with my daughter. And so as I was having this conversation with my inner child, I said, my daughter, Charlie, she doesn't have a sister. She has a mom. And so I get to be that person, that companion for her that gets to play with her. And now my inner child and myself, get to give my daughter something that I never had. And so then I just kind of invite my inner child to come and play Barbies with us because I loved doing that as a kid. And over time, having those conversations, I was able to rewire that neural pathway for just being present with her and being content and being okay with that.
And I think for me, I see so much of my experience in your story because my mom was a serial worker as well, and she was super ambitious, and she still is to this day. And my dad was in the military, and he worked overnight. So my parents were never home, and when they were home, they just couldn't be emotionally present because of all of the outside things that were going on in their world. And one of the things that I struggled with in my parenting journey is being present with my kids because like you, the second I would sit down, I would start looking around for what needs to be done because I felt like that was the most important thing. Like if the house wasn't clean, I can't relax.
Yep.
Um,
Mhm.
yeah, so I definitely relate to that. I really, really do. And I try to be very conscious about it now. My 3-year-old Grant, I'm lucky enough to be able to be a stay-at-home mom. But, for Gio, my oldest son, I worked majority of his life. He was always in daycare. And unfortunately, I can't ever go back and get that time back. So now that he's 7, I'm trying to make up for lost time essentially. But 0 to 7 is where a lot of the work happens and the imprints are made. And I love to say I don't have regrets in life, and I don't, but if I could go back and change anything, it would definitely be to be more present with all of my children in the moment.
Yeah, yeah. But at least you have, the beautiful awareness that you have now to, to give him all of that love and attention. You know what I mean? Like, because sometimes, when I have conversations with moms and they're like, "Oh my God, 0 to 7, my kids are teenagers. I messed them up completely." And I'm like, "No, no, no, no. Don't put so much pressure on yourself. Like you can still like be there for them." And like, I just always try to remind everybody like the path that we're on is the path that we're on. It's exactly the way that it's supposed to be going. And at any point in time, we want to pivot or make a change, for the better, our highest good. Like that was the exact moment that it was supposed to happen. So your kiddos are lucky to have you as their mommy.
Thank you. And your kiddo is very lucky to have you. So my next question is, how has your healing journey positively impacted your daughter in your approach to parenting? Now, I see it because I see her on your Instagram, and I've never seen someone with so much freedom to express their personality and just all of the smile she has. She genuinely looks happy.
Oh, thank you. Um, you know, it's I'm not perfect. I'll say that. We still have our moments because like I said at the beginning, our children there are mirrors for us for our, stuff that we still need to heal. And, after you do the inner child healing, you have the inner teenager, so it's just like it never ends. Um, but that's okay. It's just part of the process. She's taught me really to just have more fun, like just have more fun. Like they only have one childhood, right? And if we can just like, consciously and continuously tell ourselves like this, they only have one childhood before they're, become a teenager and then they want nothing to do with us. Although my ultimate goal is for her to always be like, my mom is my best friend. That's the goal. That's the goal. But not to the point where, some people will, when they see gentle parenting, they look at it like, oh, you're just letting your kid get away with murder. They're walking over you. And I'm like, no, 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 you still put boundaries in place. There's still boundaries and respect, mutual respect. But I always just want that door to just always be open, like as a friend, like, yes, I'm your mom, but I'm also your friend. Like literally our kids, they trust us with their entire lives. That's all they know. And so we have this opportunity to become their best friend. And, growing up where my mom was like, absolutely not, because I think she thought in her mind if it would be her letting her guard down, right? And then I'd be walking all over her. And if we can just like detach all of that and break that apart and realize, no, we want to have that really beautiful, juicy, healthy relationship so they can come to us with anything, the most vulnerable, embarrassing, sad, like anything, even the, things to celebrate. You want that door to just always be open for them and never closed. And I think for, me embarking on inner child healing and with her and our relationship, I love that she can tell me, Mom, that I didn't really like that tone. That kind of hurt my feelings a little bit. And I crack up because I'm like, girl, I am not raising my voice. You would know if I raised my voice because you don't ever hear it. But it's just like a little bit more stern. And so she is able to voice how she feels. And I think that's a beautiful empowering tool that we can give our kids to be able to put their emotions into words and their feelings and express how they feel, and for us to receive that with no judgment. Because a lot of times we grow up stuffing our feelings down, having no voice. Like how many girls, were told to just be seen and not heard, and their voices are stifled. And I truly feel like, this generation of children, they're going to change the future, like in a really, really big way. And
Absolutely.
yeah, us as mothers right now, because we are so much more open-minded to, inner child healing work, like we are healing ourselves to give them the tools now so they don't have to do as much, healing later. They're going to be set up with so much success and so many tools. Like I didn't have any emotional tools. I didn't have any of that stuff when I was a kid. Like I'm sure back in the day, if we talked about therapy, everybody would have been like, ew, you're a crazy person. Who goes to therapy? You know what I mean? But it's more now wide accepted, and healing is welcomed, and yeah, I just feel like when you embark on it, the beautiful relationship that you get to have with your children is, I can't even put it into words. It's really beautiful to be able to give that to them.
It truly is. It's a gift that literally keeps on giving from
Yeah.
generation to generation. What advice would you give to women who feel overwhelmed by their own childhood traumas and don't know where to start? What first step would you recommend them take?
Ooh, yeah. So, one, I say congratulations that you have the awareness that there is trauma there, because most people just operate on autopilot. It's just the way the brain works. And so, I think showing yourself grace first, that you have the awareness, because that's the first step. And then the second step would be, investing in some books and just reading about it and understanding that we all have it. You're not alone. And depending on the type of trauma, there's work you can do for yourself, but there's never any shame in working with a therapist or working with a coach to overcome those things, because sometimes like you got to verbalize and like talk it out. And then there's other times too, though, you don't have to talk it out depending on what your trauma is. There's so many beautiful therapies out there now, like rapid resolution therapy or the emotion code, where you don't even talk about the shit. You could just let it go. Because sometimes, people say you got to feel it to heal it. I do agree with that to a certain percent. Some of those, big traumas, sometimes we don't want to relive those, we just want that shit gone. So there are other therapies out there for that. I don't know if there's a lot of people that know about rapid resolution therapy or the emotion code, but I highly recommend you can get the book, The Emotion Code. It's a chiropractor who just got this beautiful download from God, the ethers, universe, on just releasing trapped emotion in the body. And it is phenomenal. I have all my clients read it because I think it's a beautiful tool that you can use on your children. And again, another tool you can put in their toolbox for them, for their children.
Who's the author of that book?
Let me grab it. Bradley Nelson.
Oh, okay, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, because I think I heard somewhere that Joe Dispenza is or was
Oh,
a chiropractor.
he was, well, I don't believe he was a chiropractor. I know his story. He was hit by a car, a semi, during a triathlon, and was told he was going to be paralyzed for the rest of his life. And he embarked on meditation to radically heal himself. And he said he had this conversation with God, again, God, universe, filter in whatever feels good for you, and was like, listen, if I can heal myself, subconsciously with these meditations, I will make it my life's mission to share this with the masses. And what I love, and he did, he literally went into the doctor's office months later and was walking, and the doctor was like, what the heck is happening here? And what I love about Dr. Joe Dispenza is he bridges the science and the woo-woo together. And I love that because a lot of people, I think a lot of people know now, but before, you'd say, meditating or manifestation, they were just like, oh, that's some woo-woo stuff. But
Mhm.
he has so much science to back behind it because every retreat he does, he hooks people up to the brain scans and measures their stats before and after, and people are just radically healing themselves, like radically, from cancer to diseases to terminally ill stuff. Like it is, we hold so much power in healing ourselves. Like we just sometimes it's hard for us to comprehend that, but we have that power. And because the world taints us and things happen to us, we slowly give that power away. But once you realize that, and I think inner child healing helps too with that inner power of just like I can be and do and have and all these things that I desire. There's just so much magic in that. But yeah, Dr. Joe Dispenza is phenomenal.
He's the
His
goat.
books are great.
I've read all of his books, and it's crazy. I didn't know his backstory. I had no idea that he got in an accident, but it
Yeah.
makes sense. And he was like one of the first people on this journey for my mental health and well-being and spirituality, where, like you said, when he talked about our bodies and our minds and the cohesion between the two, like it just made sense. For the first time in my life, somebody was saying something to me about my behaviors, and it just made sense. It
Yeah.
just made so much sense. So I love his work. And I love that he is sharing the message with so many people that can share the message with so many people. So with just like you were saying with inner child, it's all connected. And I love the work that you're doing, and I love the work that Dr. Joe Dispenza does, and I love the work that we are doing with this podcast. So I want to get to some juicy stuff because I brought you here partially to get your get your third party view of s- myself, I guess.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay. So let me just give you a little backstory on my life. I was raised an only child, and my mom got married to my stepdad. Can't remember what age I was. And most of my life, I have felt alone. My mom ended up giving me to my grandma to raise me for like 5 years. And when I went back with my mom, I feel like I don't want to say it was like the hardest part of my childhood, but I feel like that's where a lot of my internal suffering began. And I spent a lot of time in like, I call it solitary confinement. Because I was an only child, my parents worked. I was always home alone, and I would get in trouble for so many things, like not taking the trash out, not coming home on time, not cleaning up after myself, like not flushing the toilet. I would get in trouble for literally everything under the sun. And now as an adult, I realize, like with my own children, that I am just as critical to my kids as my parents were to me. And that's why I decided, to embark upon this journey of healing, because as you said earlier, our children are the biggest mirrors. They are the biggest non-judgmental mirrors into ourselves. And I had noticed with my oldest son, Gio, who happens to be autistic, and the way that people with autism spectrum disorder learn is through social behavior. And he was in school and he was hitting people and just aggressive. And I remember telling him, like, you don't do as you see, you do as I tell you to do. That was something that my mom always told me, like, don't do what you see me doing, do what I tell you to do. And it never made sense. And for me, my way of parenting Geo was to spank him. Like I was hit and beat as a kid, and that was all that I knew in my parenting. And so when he was, starting to hit other kids, and he's in therapy, but it kind of seemed like nothing was working, no matter how many times we said stuff to him, like, you can't do that when you're angry. I really realized that. he learned it all from me. And the second that I stopped spanking him as a way to punish him, his behavior immediately stopped.
Mm.
And so I'm saying all of that to say, aside from, aside from me passing on these traits to my children, how do you think the unresolved trauma of like not feeling enough or being alone might affect me as a mom? Or what other behaviors do you think I could unconsciously pass down to my kids?
Oh, yeah.
I'm sorry.
Well, no, it's okay. I love that you one had that awareness with him with the spanking because that's what happened with me and my daughter. And so I hope you show yourself grace there and knowing like, you were just doing the only thing that you knew, right? Um, and sometimes it's a bittersweet pill to swallow, to humble yourself, right?
Yes.
Ah, and so congratulations on that part, because I feel like that's one of the single-handed hardest things to do to not repeat is spanking and yelling. Because it's such a strong trauma that gets lodged in us, so much hurt and pain from that, right? Like it's a core memory that we experienced, and those emotions from that get lodged in us really deep. And so to be able to unpack that and consciously not do that is huge. So bravo to you for that. And anybody that listens, like we're we're not perfect. There's gonna be moments where we're imperfect, and it's a journey. So show yourself grace in it by all means. Um, I think for you with what you shared, the isolation part. I think the way I would be able to better help you is what kind of self-sabotaging mechanisms do you notice now, or things in your parenting do you notice now that you
Oh
would
my
want
God.
to improve? And you don't wouldn't share whatever you feel comfortable sharing.
Well, you said the isolation part. That I've noticed that I not only self-isolate, like I will remove myself from an environment when I don't feel okay. But, as a kid, for me, love was conditional and it depended on whether or not my caregivers were happy with life, happy with themselves, or happy with me.
Mhm.
And my dad, whom I love and I appreciate so much, and he's taught me so much. He, at the time, however, did not have the emotional intelligence skills to handle his emotions and handle me at the same time. And so I learned at a very young age, like when I make my caregivers upset, love is removed. Like I'm put away in my room, and, my dad would go days without talking to me if I did something that upset him until one day he decided he was going to talk to me again. But in my parenting, I realized that I do that now, and I am trying to figure out how to stop the need of like isolating myself or distancing myself from my kids when I'm upset.
Yeah. So there's gonna be two parts to this. One, you already have that connection, right? Of okay, you're doing this because this is what happened to you, right? And so there's gonna be a journey of where you will have to, and I don't know where you're at with this, with just forgiving those situations and those experiences. Um, Writing a letter to your father, and not giving it to him, but this is something I've done, with my dad. Is I wrote a letter to him explaining exactly how I felt, all the times that things happened, and I really allowed all my emotions to get onto the piece of paper. I never gave him this letter, and I don't ever recommend giving letters like this to the other person. But you just let all your raw feelings out, because what's happening is you're allowing your inner child to express how she felt in those moments and to be fully seen, heard, and understood, because she didn't get that. You know what I mean? When you were younger, your parents and my parents, they never asked us, well, how did me not talking to you make you feel for 5 days? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so a lot of us as adults, we were not fully seen, heard, loved, or understood at all as children. It just doesn't happen. And that's okay. So writing that letter and really allowing those feelings to come out on the piece of paper and then burning it or ripping it up and burning it. And for me, I like a good cry sesh, but like fill put it on the paper and then read it to yourself. And if you feel inclined to be emotional, that is like that's energy leaving your body. That is like you can punch a pillow, you can go to a kickboxing class, like however you want, like move the energy. If you want to dance, like whatever within this letter as you're doing it in the same moment, like do that. And I know that sounds like, okay, Andrew, this sounds silly, or this sounds so simple. Is that really going to work? But oftentimes it's just those simple acts that are so profound for us. I read somewhere, and I forget what book it was, is like the things that are going to really move the needle in our healing process or just anything in life are so simple to do. They're so simple not to do. So we just don't do them. But
Mhm.
for me and for a lot of my clients, that letter that gets written to actually say all the stuff that we wanted to say over the past years just feels so freeing. And do that process however you want, but then moving forward, how do you actually apply the action to not do this, to not show up this way in your parenting? And that part is, I always ask, what are you doing for yourself daily? How are you filling up your cup? What does your self-care and self-love look like for yourself?
Mm. So you mentioned journaling and dancing and making life fun as a way to connect with our inner children or our inner child in order to be less triggered by our own kids. And you talk about, the importance of self-care. What do you think in the actual moment, like let's say I'm dealing with my son and I go tell him to do something and he says, I don't want to, which is this is a real life experience, something that I'm dealing with. And, as people who had parents that were authoritarians, my response is because I told you.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
need to go
Oh,
do it because I'm telling you to, and I'm not asking you, and I'm not your friend. Yeah, all the things I've said.
yeah.
What do you think someone can do in that exact moment?
So I love this question. So are you familiar with Dr. Shafali? She
No.
she's the author of The Conscious Parent, The Awakened Family. She has other books. This specific question you're asking goes hand in hand with conscious parenting. So how do we stop ourselves in the moment instead of reacting? How do we consciously respond? And the way conscious parenting works is the goal is to get a win for the kid and a win for you. So you want him to put away the thing, right? Or I love this example. I'm going to use a cookie for an example because I don't know why this is, and I think I read it in her book, or maybe I made it up somewhere along the line. But say your kid wants cookie before dinner and you're just like, no, you need to eat your dinner, dude, like, and then you can have a cookie. And he's like throwing a fit about the cookie and you're just like, you want to yell and you'd be like, no, like, I just, the cookie come later. And then usually it gets to the point where you're like, well, now you don't get the cookie, right? So in a moment like that, you would say, I hear you, I understand you really want this cookie before dinner, I really want a cookie before dinner too. However, it's going to hurt our bellies. We need to put nourishing food in our stomach first, and I want you to have this cookie. What about you get a cool special plate to put the cookie on and put it on the table so we don't forget to eat it after dinner? And you start giving them like a couple options to choose from. So now they're getting their way, but you're also getting the way. And it's hard for us to get to the point to do that because we just want them to just listen.
Mhm.
But it's again, it's just pausing and letting them know they have other options to get what they want, and you get what you want too. So the example you used for him was he was not, what were you wanting him to do again?
Oh, I mean, it's like go get dressed or go brush your teeth. There we go. Go brush
Oh,
your teeth.
yeah, yeah. I know that one all too well. That one's such a struggle. I'm like, don't you want your teeth to be sparkly white?
Right.
Um, yeah. So, again, you're wanting a win, right? So, and you don't ever want to tie it to, this is something too I learned in the book, you don't ever want to tie it to a reward either, because then they think that there's always a reward if they do something. And this is something they should just be doing anyways, brushing their teeth. So
Yeah,
you can, and this is this for the 3-year-old or is this for the 7-year-old?
the 7-year-old.
7-year-old. Okay. So I'll go in there and brush my teeth with you. You know, how can I help you to want to brush your teeth more? Do we need to do it together? Do you want like, I don't know if he has like a super cool toothbrush that he uses or a special, all of his like special things. Like there's a way that you want to make it to where it's fun and inviting, and it's something that it's almost like it's his idea of wanting to do it, instead of us always saying you need to go brush your teeth, right?
Mhm.
Or you need to brush your teeth, or because I'm guilty of this too. Like you can't be on the iPad if you don't brush your teeth. And then I'm like, no,
Yeah.
we can't talk like that. We can't do that because that's not creating like, a healthy routine for them. And it teaches them again, there's always a reward if they do what they're told, which later in life can, stunt them. So it's really just getting down on their level and coming up with a solution and bringing them into the solution too. Like, how can we get this to be to a point? Like I told my daughter, like, I don't want to argue with you. This doesn't feel fun. Does this feel fun? Like us arguing about you brushing your teeth when it's like it's your body. Like this is something that we do to take care of ourselves. So we don't, go to the dentist and we get cavities. And I will say this, it's still an ongoing battle in my home, but really kind of having the conversation with them around it. How can I help you? Help me help you.
Thinking of it as a win for me and a win for them completely changes. Like just having
Mhm.
that in mind will completely change how I approach it because, you know, again, I have an authoritarian personality when it comes to my kids, prior law enforcement and military. Like it's ingrained in me.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
And I've always just been like focused on, well, what do I want? Like I want him to go brush his teeth. So what's the win for me? And I'm going to get it no matter what the consequence is. Whether you're screaming and crying, whether I have to take the TV away, I'm going to get it by any means necessary. But that same approach is what causes a disconnect in a disconnect with my kids. And so one,
Yeah.
I'm trying to approach it, but I love that framework. And I think that a lot of people can use that when they are facing difficult situations with their kids. Just give them options. And that does work. I've tried it quite a few times, and giving them the option, even if it's still the same thing that you said, you just phrased it differently. Uh,
Yeah.
giving them
And
yeah, giving them the option really does make them feel empowered that they're making their own choices, and nobody wants to feel controlled.
yes, yes. The empowerment thing I think is the most beautiful. Like, and we've even since our move, and I should probably take it out now that you're saying this, like we had a like a chores like magnet board, and it came with like 50 pieces of chore items that she could choose to put up on the board. And so she got to create her chore list, and within the chore list, there's, you fill this out, and there's, yes, there is a little bit of a reward tied to it, but it's more of like this is hers that she gets to create, you know what I mean, type kind of thing. And that again, like you said, like empowering them, putting the power back into their hands so it feels like it's their idea and they're in control, is always like the backdoor approach, if you will, to get what you really want as mom.
Absolutely. And I really want our listeners to know, like, it's a message that I'm sharing with everyone, but also a message I'm sharing with myself. Like, we don't have to be perfect, and we
Mhm.
don't have to be, perfect in order to be a good mom. Healing it's such a journey that is not linear, and every small intentional step that we take is a step in the right direction, whichever direction that is. But before we go, I really want to ask you, like, what made you decide to show up in the world in this way? Like, what was it?
What was, I'm sorry, can you repeat that? What was the
What was it? Like, you are very, women empowerment. You want to help. You have this desire to help people. What was it, if you know what it is, that created this passion within you?
Yeah. To keep it really short, basically, I I feel like I've gone through a lot of stuff, and I was able to get myself through that and come up out of the murky water and be in this space. Like one day I'll share my entire story, and people will be like, "What the freak?" Like it will be one of those stories you're like won't be able to believe, but it's I just have this burning desire in me. Like, if I could go through what I went through and get out of it and be this conscious, happy person, and I'm not happy all the time, I allow myself to feel the feelings. If I can do that, anybody can do that. Like, we all have the power to create whatever beautiful life that it is that we want, birth any desire that's been placed on our heart. And I firmly believe when we there was a quote I heard once at church and it stuck with me, and it was, your past is the gift to somebody else's future. And,
Mm.
or, you can call it your testimony, whatever. But like, I truly feel what I went through was to share with others. And I just feel this burning desire to share it, to let people know they're not alone. Like, what you're going through, I've been through it, and we can get through it together. And you don't have to do it on your own. And like you said, like, you don't need to be perfect. We're like imperfectly perfect the way that we are. And it's going to be messy and there's going to be bumps in the road. But the fact that you're even taking the initiative to want to heal, that is beautiful. And that pours out a ripple into your home, into your family, into the community, into the world. And I truly feel like we have the capacity to create a better future for our children and our children's children. And I use that as my compass when I share my message. Like, that's why I share what I share, because my children's children, I won't be here, but I'll know from the work that I did today, they're going to have a better future.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, that was such an amazing hour with you. I feel like we had covered so much. And, I really hope that whoever's listening really has been able to take some tools and resources, whether that's journaling or, self positive self talk. I hope that someone is able to benefit from this conversation that we had. But I do want to, from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for your time and thank you for coming on this platform. And I want to thank everyone for their bravery and their commitment to growth for self. If you found this podcast episode helpful, please share this with someone you know, your mother, your cousin, your sister, your best friend, or even that coworker at work that you don't like. The best gift you can give is the gift of healing. Thank you so much for showing up for yourself today. I love you, and I'll see you in the next episode.